we're back. All it takes is a little blink, eh? Like, all it takes is just like a little, like, doink. And the whole thing comes off the fucking rails. I lose my viewership. Having a real nice show. In my eyes, indisposed, in disguises no one knows, hides the face, lies the snake, the sun in my disgrace, boiling heat, summer stench, neath the black the sky looks dead. Call my name through the cream and I'll hear you scream again. Black old sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black old sun, won't you come, won't you come, won't you come? Stuttering, cold and damp, steal the warm wind, tired friend. Times are gone for honest men, and sometimes far too long for snakes. In my shoes, a walk in sleep. In my youth, I pray to keep heaven send hell away. No one sings like you anymore. Black old sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black old sun, won't you come, won't you come? Black old sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black old sun, won't you come, won't you come, won't you come, won't you come? All it takes is a little blink out, eh? And everything collapses. I go from like 15 viewers to a single viewer. Whoever you are, I hope you're doing well. My single viewer out in the middle of nowhere. Right? Ah, man, that's a real bummer, man. It's a real bummer when that kind of thing happens. Just a little blink out. It's all it takes, eh? And it's just like, of course it happens here in Canada. Like, Canada has the worst service on the fucking planet. Like, we've got the worst service. Not the planet, but like in the developed world, certainly. We pay the highest costs. We pay the highest price, right? And we get the least amount of service for it. And it's just getting brutal. It's just getting brutal. Like, here we are having a nice cast, and just like a little tiny blink out, and the whole thing collapses. UK says they will withdraw all their forces from Ukraine if Russia orders its military to launch an offensive on Ukraine. The UK also cancelled the plan to deploy 600 British special forces to Ukraine. Canada has more than 200 CAF troops in Ukraine as Operation Unifier. Is Canada smart enough to follow the UK in pulling its troops if Russia invades? Or will it leave these troops to get crushed along with the Ukrainian army? This all assumes that Russia is going to invade. And the only reason Russia would invade... maybe it was Pink Floyd Major. Who knows? But the only reason why Russia would invade is if the neo-Nazis along its border basically keep harassing its own citizens, right? Like, that's what's happening. That NATO is funding that, so that NATO is the United States, Canada, the UK, I believe Germany and France, right? The Allies from World War II. Or sorry, not the Allies, my mistake. That's a different group. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So Europeans and North Americans, right, funding, and they're funding literal neo-Nazi groups, like groups that are explicitly and openly, like the Azov Battalion, in order to destroy Ukraine, right? That they fomented a coup, which was successful. They're funding neo-Nazi groups. And those neo-Nazi groups are causing problems for the Russians. And so what's the solution? Stop funding neo-Nazi groups. It's actually extremely straightforward. Yeah, video crashed when you started about the NBC millennial houses regarding Omicron being not as bad as a flu. Probably most likely, but it may be worse for kids in danger of long COVID. May still be worse than flu. Yeah, there's a lot of information, Adam. Like, there's a lot of information. And we can only talk about, like, what we see. And it seems to me that while what you're saying is true, it may be, that's possible, but the data is showing that if you've got the vaccine, it's not going to matter. Like, it's not going to matter in regards to transmission. It is going to matter in regards to hospitalization. That's really, and that's my understanding of it. And so is it going to be worse for kids, and the danger of long COVID may be worse than flu? And there's also the fear of mutation, right? That, well, transmission is when it mutates. It mutates through transmission, right? So is simply saying, oh, let's just let this thing become an endemic and is that going to be good? It's essentially what happened with the flu, right? The flu is the Spanish influenza, right? And like, we just endemiced it and lived with it, and there it is now, right? And incidentally, we've almost killed the flu with all of this wearing masks and all this kind of stuff. And so will COVID just sort of fade out and become something like that? We'll all just be like, yeah, there it is, COVID. Yeah, remember when we all like wore masks and were scared of COVID? Like, but it's just gonna be around, right? And just like the Spanish influenza, like, sure, there were some years that were worse and some years that were, not as bad. And the same thing here will happen with COVID. And eventually people will just be like, fuck it. Like, stop reporting this. Like, I'm not scared of this anymore. Something's got to get you. Looks like Putin backed off. Remember, he is a capitalist oligarch. Yeah. Russia cannot retreat any further. Yeah. No, this is absolutely the truth. Like, the narrative that says Russia is going to invade Ukraine is, like, Putin himself is saying that he's not going to do it. So it's very much just a Western narrative. And the reason why the Westerners are propagating this narrative The reason why they're talking about this idea that Russia is going to invade Ukraine is because they can't talk about what's actually happening in Ukraine, right? Like, so instead of talking about what's actually going on in Ukraine, which is that the democratically elected leadership of Ukraine was overthrown by NATO, and that NATO is funding neo-Nazi groups in order to continue offensive assaults within Ukraine, right? So that it can disrupt the Belt and Road Initiative. That's the whole point, right? If they actually talked about this, its own citizens might be like, hey, whoa, what the fuck? Why are you doing that? You can't talk about that. Can't talk about that. So you got to talk about Russia's going to invade Ukraine because what we're doing here is completely legitimate. Yeah, people are shocked I don't have a cell phone or a printer by choice. It's not necessary for me. Yeah. I kind of wish I had a printer, you know? A printer is one of those things that, like, you don't need until you need. You know what I mean? I, don't need a printer until I really need a printer. But I used to just go down to the library, but even that's gotten more and more difficult. Yeah, Canada calls for a united front against China. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has urged Western capitalist democracies to band together to prevent Beijing from taking advantage of their infighting over the profits from China's growing markets. Canada, which is actively committing a genocide against Indigenous nations, is urging capitalist democracies to band together against China. Further ramping up tensions with China will severely damage the economy and build even further reliance on the murderous U.S. empire. Yep. These liberals are a disaster for us. Even the Harper administration understood that, right? One of the things that Harper did was he was like, yeah, we got to disconnect from the United States. We have to. All right, I'm going to sing this one. Another month inside this car. The wage they pay me with don't get me very far. The chains that hold me break me down, but they don't scar. Can't even drink away my blues inside a bar. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. Another day won't help that pain inside your back. The days get harder, but it's too hard to keep track. They keep you tired before your soul opens a crack. And God don't care what monkeys think about the facts. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. So sit atop your pile of bones and bloody gold, and human sacrifice don't stop you being old. At least you'll die before the bomb you said explodes. We're gonna burn to death while doing what we're told. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. It burns down anyway. It burns Fuck, that's a good song. Fuck, that's a good song. We can only comment about other countries. I mean, for God's sakes, like, we're such a bunch of losers over here in Canada. Like, we pretend like we have any moral high ground whatsoever. That's the best part. Like, I think the best part about Canada and about commenting on how fucking dumb Canada is that we're sitting over here being like wagging our fingers at other nations as if we have like any credibility whatsoever. We have exactly zero credibility. Like, whatever Canada says, the rest of the world just scoffs and rolls its eyes. Like, we can't even stand up and pretend we're our own independent nation anymore. Like, we're just an embarrassing surrogate. Like a big fucking crazy thug walks in the room with a club and points at everybody and goes, "You do this!" And we're just like the little asshole off to the side that goes, "Yeah!" That's it. Right? Like, "You, China bad!" Yeah! That's Canada. Like, we're so fucking dumb and pathetic. Like, we're like, if you're familiar with the Care Bears, we're like Beastly, right? That like America is no heart, just being like, "I am here to destroy the world's caring," and Beastly's like, "Yeah, whatever you say, Master." Yeah, right? And goes around and just fucks everything up, constantly a pain in the ass. Ugh. Yeah, oh boy, I've been watching Eastern Ukraine footage from RT show news team Murad Gazdiev. Is such a badass journalist. Well, I mean, like, RT television is usually pretty good, right? Like, and in this particular case, it's literally like a group of Americans who can't report on the news from America, and so they're reporting on Russian television, because where else can they report? And like, the Russians clearly don't want war. Like, they clearly don't. It's fairly obvious that this is completely a Western agenda. And honestly, it's obviously a way to disrupt the Belt and Road Initiative. That's obviously what they're doing. And like, who are the people who are being like, yeah, this is a necessary thing, that we should have destroyed Ukraine. We should cause problems for Ukraine. We should go in there and dismantle the place and make it a real shithole for everybody. Right? Yeah. What a great thing we're doing. USA, USA, right? We're so fucking dumb. Yep, if you want to know the vibe in New York, a friend of mine who works retail tested positive for COVID and their boss told them to come in and just don't tell anyone. Right? Like, psychopathic systems breed psychopaths. Pretty straightforward shit. Pretty straightforward shit. So here's one coming out of the Financial Post. The Financial Post is also part of this Capitalist Manifesto thing. Financial Post, the Capitalist Manifesto. But it's like pretty... Right? Like, it's pretty like low level compared to what the National Post is doing. And they're like just producing the same, they're just releasing the same bullshit. Anyway. But even these guys are starting to publish things like, hey, when will my grocery bill stop spiraling? Right? The question of when food prices increases will start to cool off depends on two main factors. Oh, let's see what those factors are, according to Jake Edmonston in the Financial Post, which I'm sure is going to be completely legitimate. One of Canada's biggest commercial bakeries in late November sent a letter warning to groceries of an impending jump in the price of bread. Weston Foods, which makes the D'Italiano, Country Harvest, and Wonder Bread brands in Canada, and is now owned by FGF Brands Incorporated, said the spiraling costs of wheat and labor had become too much to handle on its own. Certainly not that they're just lying, right? Yeah, it was inflation. Inflation is what did it. They're certainly not just bullshitting, right? Despite our efforts, we're no longer able to absorb increased materials, packaging, and labor inflation, executives from the company told retailers in November 29th letter obtained by the Financial Post. And of course, their profits are going up, right? So they earn a whole bunch of money, but the trouble is actually all this other bullshit. As a result, the bakery will raise its prices by the end of February by 14.1% for packaged bread and rolls, 18.1% for donuts, 20% for iced cupcakes, and 13% for pies. Right? While they take home a larger share, while they are making money hand over fist, they are raising prices and claiming that the problems are increased materials, packaging, and labor inflation. So they're full of shit. They're completely full of shit. Their own take-home pay has gone up. They are raising prices. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what's happening. Weston Foods grows a growing number of food producers trying to raise their prices to retailers in the face of seemingly endless stream of complications. Oh yeah, it's the complications. It's certainly not the fact that we just want more money. From weather catastrophes that have increased commodity costs, to higher fuel costs and clogged ports that have driven up transportation costs. If any of this is the truth, why are they taking home more money? For example, Lactalis Canada Incorporated, part of the French dairy giant that produces Beatrice Milk, Astro Yogurt, and other brands, will implement a non-negotiable price hike of up to 15% in February, in response to higher energy, labor, packaging, and transportation costs, as well as a historic increase in the price paid to Canadian farmers for their milk. And yet the bottom line keeps going up. So which is it? As the hikes continue, the question for many consumers as they shoulder high levels of price inflation is, how long will this last? How long will this last? As long as the capitalist system exists. Prices will continue to raise until the capitalist system is gone. That's the way capitalism works. That it's not about price increases or any of this kind of shit. And how do we know that's the case? Because the bottom line goes up. These guys are making more money than they've ever made, right? They are making more money now than they made last year, than they made the year before. Line go up. They're making more money. So this idea, like if their profits dipped, if their profits even plateaued, right? If their profits declined, then I would be more willing as a consumer to say, oh, yes, it must be the case that there are other factors that are increasing the price of your goods. But the reality is that you have a worthless group of parasites who do no work, provide no value, are pathetic losers who literally wouldn't know how to actually run one of these places if they were told to do it, who just want line go up. Well, I made 1 billion this year, so I should make 1.1 next year. Oh, I made 10 billion this year, so I should make 11 billion next year, right? That's literally the way that they think, and it's the reason why they're raising prices. And the Financial Post reporting on anything other than that is journalistic malpractice. It's the reason why I have a channel and the reason why it will continue to grow and be successful, even as YouTube throttles it. Which, incidentally, good time to say like, share, subscribe, send it around. If you don't share it, it doesn't get seen. It's worth noting that when suppliers try to implement price increases on grocers at the wholesale level, it doesn't automatically translate into higher prices for consumers. The largest Canadian grocer, Loblaws, recently boasted it was negotiating hard with suppliers to beat back the increases so that we offer our customers the best value. Quebec Metro suggested that during its latest earnings call that it would consider absorbing price increases and taking thinner margins to stay competitive. We'll see. Probably not. They don't want to put a stake in the ground on pricing if it's something that's going to prove to be transitory. Barclays analyst Karen Short said in an interview last month. You could have 1 month where farm products are up 40%, the next month where they're only up 10%. The volatility is extreme, especially volatile when you're negotiating with the most petulant, childish, narcissistic people that maybe have ever existed. But a series of new reports confirm some of the increases are getting through to consumers and will continue to do so in 2022. Statistics Canada, in its latest Consumer Price Index report, found grocery bills in November increased by 4.7% compared to last year, the highest increase since 2015. But it's always an increase, right? It's always an increase. Whether it's 1%, 2%, or 4.7%, there's always an increase. And if food prices are increasing by 4.7%, and if everything you're buying is increasing, thanks to inflation and just these hacks just raising prices, right? Did you get a 4.7% increase in your wage? Are you getting paid 4.7% more? Another study predicted food inflation will hit 5 to 7% next year, which would increase the annual household food budget for a family of 4 by $966. According to the food price report released this month by Dalhousie University, University of Guelph, University of Saskatchewan, and University of British Columbia. The grocers will only be able to absorb so much, said University of Guelph professor Simon Simoji, who co-authored the report. Retailers may be able to loss lead in some products, but only in the very short term. It's going to be passed on. Typically, he said, prices go up due to a problem in one specific area of the supply chain. It might be the farm, it might be processing, it might be retailing, it might be restaurants, he said. I can think of a problem in the supply chain. Okay, just imagine. Imagine if you had within your supply chain a totally worthless parasite that takes the vast majority of the wealth of what's happening, the vast majority of the wealth for what's happening, always demands for more, but provides no value and doesn't actually do any work. That would be a significant problem in the supply chain, right? Those people are called shareholders. They're completely worthless. They do nothing except raise prices and make life difficult for everyone involved in the process. That's what they are for. They are there to extract wealth and make life difficult. And they do both very well. This time, however, every stage of the food chain is facing higher costs. One major factor is that labor shortages have intensified in the pandemic, reaching an all-time high of 912,600 in the third quarter of 2021. Statistics Canada has reported on December 20th. Cry more, noob. You guys take home billions of dollars. It's just getting fucking annoying. If the cost of fuel decreases and the Canadian dollar remains relatively strong, then food prices will start dropping. No, they won't. That's a total joke. That once they set the price, right, they're going to maintain that price because it's going to make them money. These guys don't drop prices. What are you talking about? You can't make $1 billion exploiting people's hunger if you drop prices. That's crazy. Saw this on RT. At the behest of the West, Ukraine may strike at Russia in February 2022 and launch an offensive in several directions. An opposition MP in the Russian State Duma claimed on Sunday. Yeah, what NATO wants, because the question is why? Why are they doing this, right? What NATO wants is they want to disrupt this area and have it spill into Belarus. That's what they want, right? They can't actually get into Belarus because Belarus is actually governed, right? The leadership in Belarus is strong. Lomachinski, Jordan. Come on. I know his name. I'm the best at this. The leader of Belarus. Lukashenko. I did it. Lukashenko's a strong leader. He's there to protect his people and he's there to protect the interests of Belarus, right? For sure. You can watch some of his more recent interviews. Lukashenko is laying it out. He is not bullshitting about what's happening. And he knows that they can't just invade Minsk. They just can't invade Belarus and blow it up, right? They don't want to blow Poland up because there's Germany, right? Blowing up like Moldavia and Romania or Slovakia or Hungary isn't going to help. Lithuania, right? None of that's going to help. Latvia, none of that's going to help, right? It's Ukraine. So they're going to blow up Ukraine, right? They're going to cause civil disorder, civil war, civil problems. And the whole goal is to disrupt the Belt and Road Initiative, the rail from Moscow to Minsk. Like, they are going to push Ukrainian fascists into Moscow, and they are going to get them to try to blow up that rail. That's what they're going to do. That's the whole point. Because if they can disrupt this, then it disrupts trade into Europe. And disrupting trade into Europe will slow down the dwindling relationship between the United States and Europe. That's what this war is about. It's pathetic. Like, it's a real, truly, like, pathetic way to exist in the world, right? That, we're not going to try to improve relations with anyone. We're not going to try to make anything better. We're not going to try to operate in the world for the benefit of anybody. We're going to make things so shitty for you that you have no alternative but to turn to us. That's literally their strategy and literally the plan, insofar as you could call it a plan. And it's going to fail, right? And it's going to fail for obvious reasons. First of all, for God's sakes, the Americans lost against the Afghanistan people, right? Against the Taliban, they lost, right? They lost against Afghanistan. They've lost every war they've ever fought, right? Like, the only war the Americans have won in the last 100 years has been World War II, where the actual winner of the war was the Soviets. And they just kind of came in and cleaned up to make sure that the Soviets didn't claim all of Europe, right? Which is what they were planning to do. And so the Americans come in and kind of salvage things for the capitalist class, right? Save capitalism, as Roosevelt put it. And but since then, it's just been a series of total failures, right? And so you're telling me that the Americans now are going to go to war, with Moscow? With Russia? So they're going to lose, right? Maybe they'll destroy a bunch of shit, but they're going to lose, right? They can't beat the Taliban, right? They can't beat fucking Taliban. You're telling me they're going to beat the fucking Russian nation? That's not going to happen. The Russian nation that has significant military ties to China? That's not going to happen, right? So the strategy here is to fund Nazis in Ukraine, to have the Nazis go in and try to do acts of terrorism, right, in Moscow and along the border here. That's the goal. And it's not going to work. And a big reason why it's not going to work is because China can build faster than the United States can bomb. Like, sure, like, a bombing campaign is shocking, right? But in the time it takes the Americans to build back their arsenal and to actually do another offensive like that and be successful at it, the Chinese can rebuild that. And they will. Right? Along with the Russians. Like, this narrative that we're going to operate in the world through destruction is blowing up in the Americans' face. In significant ways. In significant ways. First of all, it never worked. Right? It doesn't actually work. All it does is destroy yourself. You take all of the wealth that you've been given, you funnel it into bombing campaigns, which manifest into nothing, right? And eventually, all you know how to do is bomb other nations. That's all you know how to do, and that's all the Americans know how to do. And it's manifesting in their politics. It's manifesting all over the place. They don't know how to act any other way. They don't understand how to even attempt to pursue a path of peace. They simply don't understand that it's even possible. Like, you understand? Like, you understand how, like, duplicitous and disgraceful the West has become? We literally don't understand how to begin to pursue a path of peace. And if you suggested to these guys, hey, maybe we should pursue a path of peace, they're going to laugh at you. Like, that's how ingrained it is in the American psyche. that war is necessary. We have to go to war. Right? And they literally argue that their wars are good wars. Like, oof. Like, there's no such thing as a good war. Like, is there such a thing as needing to defend yourself against a psychopath? Yeah. But that's the United States. Who's walking around saying our wars are good? Like, and then on top of all of that, what's the number one thing that's actually killing the planet for us? Right? Not killing the planet. You can't kill the planet. Like, the planet will kill us. So the number one thing, though, that's causing this climate change catastrophe is the United States military. Number one. And it's not even close. It's not even close. Right? But that's the United States for you, right? They're number one. They've got to be number one. Right? And so if the world is going to get blown up, you're goddamn right. It's going to be America that does it. Right? No, we're not going to stop that comment. It's going to land. USA. 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 Imagine the tunnel systems China could build. Yeah. And probably already has built, honestly. Like, China has built full-scale cities. Just like empty cities. Because the Chinese people know that climate change is going to have big problems, right? That if the sea levels rise, there are going to be significant areas of their country that they're going to have to leave, right? Like, and not small stuff, dude. Like Guangzhou and Hong Kong, this whole region, right? If the sea levels go up 1 meter, so not a lot. If the sea levels go up 1 meter, this is uninhabitable. You won't be able to live there, right? It's a major, major, major city that is going to have to evacuate. They're going to have to evacuate this whole city, right? And so they've built cities all in the higher territory, right? All in the higher lands and in the mountains and shit. So, like, imagine the tunnel systems. They've probably already built them, right? And, like, the plan to get across here, like, they're building a city. Saudi Arabia is building a city here called Neom, right? And they're going to build a tunnel underneath here. They're going to build a tunnel underneath so that they can get the Belt and Road Initiative underneath the Gulf of Aqaba here. And that gets them into the Suez Canal and into Cairo. Just completely sidestep Israel entirely. There's, I would even believe that they are going to go from Tehran, right? And cross over here from Bandar Abbas, right? Get into the United Arab Emirates or Qatar, right? And get into Saudi Arabia that way. Just build a fucking tunnel under the Persian Gulf. Just go for it. Let's go. Let's go, Brandon. Speaking of let's go, Brandon. People are losing their minds about this let's go, Brandon thing, right? Like, listen to this. Like, just listen to this. This is fucking nuts, dude. So the story is that on a call that Joe Biden had with an American, at the end of the call, the American said, let's go, Brandon. And Joe Biden said, let's go, Brandon, I agree. Right? And then attempted to want to continue the conversation, but the guy that said, let's go, Brandon, got cut off. So Joe Biden himself doesn't give a fuck about this let's go, Brandon stuff. Like, he either doesn't understand its significance or he literally doesn't give a fuck. And I gotta tell you, if I was Joe Biden, I wouldn't give a fuck. I would just be like, okay, let's go, Brandon. And I've been saying it this whole fucking time. Leftists, communists, need to say let's go, Brandon. And we need to adopt let's go, Brandon. We've got to. At this point, and especially because of this shit, I'm more convinced now than ever. Let's go, Brandon. We should start saying this shit. And here is why. Here's someone's response to this shit. Because on a call with military families where President Biden asked some children what they wanted for Christmas and passed along some much needed Christmas cheer, and the father felt the need to end the call with let's go, Brandon, I feel I need to say this. Joe Biden has buried 2 children and a wife. It's cute the way you think your little catchphrase and bumper stickers are going to hurt his feelings. Joe Biden has beaten everything that you've tried to beat him from a stutter on down. He also beat your fluorescent flamingo of a white supremacist savior by an unprecedented amount of votes and took his job and his Twitter account. Respect is earned, and as a decent human being, Joe Biden has earned it, if you say so. When you say, let's go Brandon, you might as well advertise yourself as a nearly political illiterate, unoriginal, cult-following fool who wandered willingly behind the flock of the loudest voices around you into hating a man that you don't actually know anything about. Donald Trump is never going to be president of the United States again. And he was a flagrant piece of shit when he was. True. Joe Biden is a decent man. False. Just like Barack Obama. False. You don't have to like them, but I genuinely worry about the people that say put Christ back in Christmas while shouting vulgarities and hurling insults at someone who's never done anything but just try to be a good human who simply keeps doing the next right thing. Joe Biden, like, bombing Somalia, you know, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I genuinely wish that something good happens to you in your life so you can have the fire to keep going through the struggle the way that Joseph Robinette Biden, President of the United States, has. We have to keep saying, let's go Biden, guys. We have to keep saying, let's go Biden. Right? And the reason we have to keep saying, let's go Brandon, the reason why we have to keep saying it is because of this. Because this response is as hysterical, as lunatic fringy, as insane as anything I've ever heard come out of a right-winger. Right? We have to be able to show people, these people that are claiming to be centrists, these Joe Biden supporters, right? They're nuts. They're fucking nuts. And they'll tell you how nuts they are. Look at how nuts they are. And look how easy it is. Like, let's go Brandon, and this is your response? Like, look at how weak they are. Look how weak they are. Right? Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. The MAGAs are 12 for sure, but so are their enemies. So are the respondents, right? That's my whole point, right? Like one of the things that I really respect about the movie Don't Look Up is that it worked very hard. It worked very hard to It worked very, very hard to make in the figure of the president a Democrat Republican. Like, they never explicitly state which party she's from. They never explicitly say where she is on the political spectrum. And in fact, it could be credibly argued that they're actually trying to make her more like a Democrat, given some of the iconography and imagery they use. Although Democrats will insist, I'm sure, that she is like an iconic Republican sort of figure, right? But that makes her perfect because she's not an icon of either Republican or Democrat. She's an icon of the political system itself. That whether she is Republican or Democrat is actually not relevant. She's the American president. And whether she was Republican or Democrat is beside the point. She would act in exactly the same way, regardless. And I consider that to be a massive success of the film. And that people will debate. There is going to be a long, ongoing debate in America about Don't Look Up and whether Meryl Streep's president is a Democrat or a Republican. And they did a really good job of like planting seeds in both regards. There are real things that you could point at and be like, she's literally hugging Bill Clinton in this picture. Literally hugging Bill Clinton in this picture. Yeah, but this thing that she said was exactly what Donald Trump said. Like, it's a quote from Donald Trump. Okay, and there's always going to be like, okay, and then, but what about, and then, right? And it's very, very clear that at some point the screenwriter sat down and was like, I've got 10 Democrat things and I've got 10 Republican things. and we're going to jam them together in this figure, who at the end of the day isn't about Democrat, Republican. It's about the corruption of the system itself. And that either one of them would subserviate themselves to the billionaire class the way that Meryl Streep's president does. Right? And so I don't espouse this idea that we should say, let's go Brandon, to take the side of the Republicans. I say that we should say, let's go Brandon, to piss off Democrats. Yeah, I've never actually said it out loud like that, but that is exactly the reason why I like it. That is the reason why I like it. Because I'm not the Democrats' allies. Fuck these guys. Their leader is just as deluded and psychopathic as Trump was. Biden is just as bad as Donald Trump. The only difference between these two guys is that Donald Trump has some panache. That's the only difference, is that Donald Trump is just a loudmouth, abrasive asshole. That's who he is. Biden has the sense to be like, well, isn't that a pickle of a dilly? Well, yeah, let's go, Brandon. I agree. Hey, you're from Oregon? Like, Donald Trump and Biden are perfect together because America is schizophrenic, right? It's obviously got, like, if it was a person, it would be completely schizophrenic, right? So it makes total sense that at this point in time, you've got on the one side Donald Trump, who's just like a loudmouth, crazed lunatic who will just say anything, lie to anyone. He's always running a grift, always. And then on the other side is just this boring, could literally be like your grandpa, right? Who's just like, yeah, America is the greatest country in the world. You know, we gotta be careful about what's going on in the world. And, you know, we've always seen ourselves as the great protector of the United States of America, you know? And then it'll flip over and just be like, but we're going to make sure we get a good deal from these guys. We're not going to get screwed over like the Chinese. But boy, is America the greatest country in the world. You know? Like, take Donald Trump and Joe Biden and put them in the same character and actually have them act the way that they would act, and you will end up with someone who is completely schizophrenic and completely accurate to the American experience. And I cannot stand that the Democrats attempt to pretend like they're better in any way than the Republicans, right? Like, in many ways, the Republicans kind of know how shitty they are, right? And they just don't care, right? They love each other anyway, is how they'd put it. Oh, sure, my neighbor's got some problems. You know, we all got problems, don't we? But I don't hold it against him. You know, he seems like a good, upstanding man. Sure, he doesn't like the blacks, but, you know. Whereas the Democrats pretend like they actually have a leg up. That's my favorite part about the Democrats, is they pretend as though they actually have a leg up, when the game that they're playing is much more duplicitous and much more sinister, in my view, right? Like, the Republicans are standing up and being like, boo black people, right? And then the Democrats are standing up being like, we're here to help black people, never vote for them, never improve anything, and in fact, we've passed lots of legislation to actively hurt them, but we say we're here for black people, right? Which is worse, do you think? If two men walked up to you and one said, they both said, you've got to pick one of us, and one guy said, vote for me and I'm going to punch you right in the face. And then the other guy said, vote for me and I'm not going to punch you in the face. It would be likely that you would vote for the guy who said, I'm not going to punch you in the face. But then if he punched you in the face, would you think less of him or better than him, than the guy who, if you voted for him, he'd just punch you in the face? Right? I think it's way worse to tell someone you're not going to punch them in the face and then punch them in the face. It's way worse. And that's essentially what's going to happen in this next presidential election. Is that Americans are going to look at Joe Biden, and Joe Biden is going to stand there and go, "We will not punch you in the face. I know, we've said it before, and we've always punched you in the face. Every single time. We've always just wound up as hard as we could and just laid one out right on your kisser. Every time. Right after telling you we wouldn't. Right after telling you we wouldn't. And oh, how we laughed. Oh, how we laughed." And then Donald Trump is going to be like, "Vote for me and you're going to get punched in the face, the best you've ever been punched in your face. It's going to be the greatest face punch anyone in the history of face punches has ever seen. We're going to really, really wind up on it. We're going to lay it out. And once we hit you, you're going to hit the mat with such a force that the entire world will go, 'Oh, that guy got punched in the face better than anyone who's ever been punched in the face ever has been punched in the face before.'" And Americans are going to go, Donald Trump's really pitched this face punching thing to me, If I'm going to get punched in the face, I might as well get punched in the face the best anyone has ever been punched in the face. Right? The best anyone has ever been punched in the face. Yeah, I think I can go along with that. Fuck this idea that these guys are saying they're not going to punch us in the face, and then they do. And then they do anyway. So I'm not going to be played for a sap. I'd rather just get punched in the face than be played for a sap and get punched in the face. Right? Yeah, let's give Trumpy another shot. Let's turn the channel. Exactly. I know more about face punches than anyone. I've been punching people in the face since I was a young boy. One time I punched a man in the face so effectively that he thanked me. Hey Frog, how you doing, bud? Thank you for the video on Don't Look Up. It's good to know we are not alone. People of prominence are seeing what we are seeing. It's frustrating knowing we are run by sociopaths. Exactly. And Frog, you're really hitting on it. You're really hitting on it, which is that that movie really lets us know that we are not alone. And one of the great joys of this channel, and one of the great things that I value so much about this channel, is that it has let me know that I am not alone. And I hope it lets each and every one of you know that you are not alone. That the way you feel, the fears that you have, that the view of the world that is around you. I know when I was growing up and coming up in the world, I was constantly told that I was just like, "Oh, it's just you. You're just an independent person. You're just a kooky guy. Nobody thinks this way. Oh, John, that's way over the top." Right? Over and over and over and over again. And now I know that that's not the truth. Because of this channel, I know that's not the truth. That there are plenty of people who want to tune in and who share the same opinions and the same view, or are at least willing to listen to people of with that view, which in many ways is good enough, right? Just the idea that you're here to listen and participate. And now we know, because of Don't Look Up, and now we know, because of Don't Look Up, that there are thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions of people who think this way. We know it. And that should only strengthen our cause and strengthen our resolve to know and understand that at the very least, there are people who are experts in their field, the highest level artists of our generation, people like Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Tyler Perry, Cate Blanchett, Meryl Streep. the most respectable actors, the highest level artists in America are with us. We are not alone. Man. It'd be really nice to be on the right side of something for once. And I don't mean right like philosophically or theoretically or any of that. It'd be really, really nice. It'd be really, really nice if I for once could do something and not have it completely destroyed by this capitalist system. It'd be really, really nice. And seeing a film like Don't Look Up really does tell me that it is possible. It is possible that we are going to turn the corner on this. And that we are going to actually start to say, like, hey, you know those people who you're shitting on and making homeless and denigrating and insulting and belittling? Those are literally your fellow citizens. Like, hey, United States government, you know how you keep pretending like you need to be strong and all this kind of stuff? Well, who do you think makes up the strength of your society? Like, what do you think is going to happen to your military force in the world if you continue to destroy your tax base and refuse to actually tax the people who you give all the money to? What do you think happens on the bottom of this for you guys? Right? Oh yeah, Ron Perlman, who really embraces the like far right like military man. And yeah, his fear for America is scary. I would be very afraid for America if I was an American right now. Hell, I'm up here in Canada and I'm afraid for America. Like everybody should be like here's the thing. I go on some subreddits and I go around and I do see people who are genuinely like death to America, like fuck this place. I hope it goes down in flames. Like they're going to celebrate every failure that America has. That's not how I view it, right? And this is why I'm always going to be at odds with everybody. Because everybody always wants to take the position of shitting on some country or some person or something. And I just don't have it in me. I just don't think that way. I think that just how I think about China, it's a group of people who are coming together and attempting to make sense and organize things for the benefit of their own nation. I think that way about America as well. And the people who are organizing America genuinely do think that they are doing it for the benefit of Americans. They genuinely do think that way. That is their bottom line. They're delusional. Which is obvious. And so, as America walks into this thresher that of their own creation, they've literally created a thresher for them to walk into. There will be people who celebrate it, and I'm not going to be one of those people. What's happening to America is absolutely heartbreaking. that America could have actually become a great and powerful nation that saw the world into a better future, into a brighter future. It could have done that. Post-World War II, they could have come together as a people and created a society that insisted that everyone be taken care of. Like, where are all these Christian principles they keep talking about? They could have created a society where everyone is taken care of, everyone shares in prosperity, and they could have maintained that. And instead, they've completely squandered it. And squandered is the word. And the decline is going to be sharp, it's going to be aggressive, and it's going to be absolutely crazed. You think that we're seeing cults now with the like mega cult, the Q cult? You think that we're seeing cults now? You wait. You wait. We're going to see some cults that are going to make your eyes pop out of your head. There's a cult, I think it's in Arkansas, right? They've organized themselves as a theocratic state, essentially. And when they pray in their church, they're all holding assault rifles. That the gun has become a relic of their faith. And that shit's gonna just spread around. It's gonna get real crazy. Real crazy. Like, you think that this is crazy? You wait. I feel like Canada is Poland on the USA, moved to drill the Arctic for capitalism. Yeah. What will happen to the USA when people stop going into the military because they are mistreated after they get out? Well, part of the problem, Ruth, is that you're always going to have people who go into the military because you're always going to have psychopaths, right? You're going to have people who want to get into the military so that they can murder people. That's the reason they're there, right? And we know for a fact that there are people who go into the military specifically to do that. That there are stories. There's this, who's that famous sniper that Bradley Cooper played? Bradley Cooper, sniper, name, character. Chris Kyle. Bradley Cooper played in American Sniper, which was a Clint Eastwood directed film. So the character Chris Kyle is a real person, right? A sniper in America, or a sniper who went around the world. And the stories that have come out about this guy, Chris Kyle, after the fact, reveal that he is a psychopath. There really is no other word to use for him. That it is obvious he joined the military in order to murder people. It's obvious that he takes joy from murdering people. It's very clear that everyone around him understood that about him. People in his own group, in his own battalion, would mess with his gun to get his sights off because they knew at some point he would attempt to murder a civilian with it. Like, these are the people that are joining the military. And in response, the American system, right, is doing everything it can to venerate psychopaths, sociopaths, and these despicable murderers, right? And create a system that encourages this kind of behavior. Because these, and why do you think they make a movie like American Sniper, right? Surely there must have been some other figure in the American military, someone who actually has done something heroic. No, they get Clint Eastwood and Bradley Cooper to make a movie about a psychopathic serial murderer who has been completely venerated, honored, and is living a happy life. What better way could you signal to the sociopaths and psychopaths in your society, you come over here into the military and you'll do just fine? Capitalism needs consumers, scratching their heads why consumers aren't consuming. They even have a term for it, priced out. Yeah, they eat themselves. Oh, I wonder if somebody predicted that. I wonder if there's any writer who predicted the idea that capitalism eats itself. Yeah. Oh well. Turns out Christianity to America was about white supremacy more than Christian values. Exactly. No, but that's exactly right. That in this book, Cotton is King, right? They argue that black people are inferior. God tells us to. God likes slavery, right? Yeah, by the way, let's go, Brandon. You got it, bud. You got it. Did you see that Spencer Cornelius guy going after Thought Slime for his video on landlords? I don't really pay that much attention to Thought Slime, I gotta tell you. I'm not... I worry very... Like, Thought Slime... I just see him fading from relevance more and more. His videos seem very... yeah, like YouTube will let you say whatever you like as long as you don't say anything important. And more that's how I view Thought Slime. That like, sure, I don't know who Spencer Cornelius is. I'm not going to investigate it because really I just see like it less and less relevant to anything. Like Thought Slime, what? He did a video on landlords talking about how worthless they were, which, hot take. I mean, and then this guy Spencer Cornelius probably was like, landlords are the greatest. We couldn't live without landlords, right? But I've stopped tuning into Thought Slime because every time I tune into Thought Slime, I'm like, this is not relevant to anything. Like it's not uninteresting, right? But it's just like doesn't pertain to anything that matters to me. Like, and I could like. I shouldn't do this. I honestly, like, I keep saying that I don't like to delve into other people's stuff, but Thought Slime is actually really weird to me on this front. Like, Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. So, 23 minutes. Transvestigations, QAnon's trans conspiracy theory. Here's a conversation that he's actually had. I actually like that. That's good. And it does look like Thought Slime is diving more in the trans community element. More and more, I think that's... So maybe when I talk, I'm talking from like my white male perspective, right? And perhaps Thought Slime is more connecting in with the trans community in bigger ways that I'm aware of. Which is likely, right? I'm just a dude. Right? Like, regrettably, we must discuss the Superman gay panic. Jordan Peterson doesn't understand George Orwell, but that's Tom Nick. Oh, that's People Also Watch. I just like... Anyway, that's enough about Thought Slime. Like, he seems to be doing very well for himself off in his corner of the internet, and that's wonderful. Convincing myself God exists to learn humility. That's nice. Isn't that nice? That is actually nice. Halloween is better than Christmas. Buying illegal drugs in Canada is shockingly easy. Maximizing likability with YouTube tutorials. Who is the worst political cartoonist? You know what I'm saying? Like, not uninteresting stuff. Stuff that I'm like, interesting, okay. I get you. I even feel like I understand why he needs to talk about this kind of stuff. But I just think if Thought Slime suddenly disappeared, if he just like vanished, there would be no like. I don't think there would be a huge ripple. You know what I mean? And this ties in with my big giant complaint about leftists on YouTube generally, right? They're not galvanizing their people. They're not agitating. They're not trying to get people into the streets. They're not trying to foment movements. They're not really trying to move anything. Like, they're not trying to move the Overton window. You know what? I think that's really what it comes down to. I'm glad that I did this thing in front of you guys, because I think I finally nailed it. The reason why I think I have to talk about Don't Look Up, and the reason why I am going to continue talking about Don't Look Up, is because it is at least an attempt to move the Overton window. If you guys don't know what the Overton window stands for, it's if you imagine like two rigid lines, right? A window, right? The Overton window refers to the window of political discourse that a society is willing to engage in, right? And so you picture the traditional line, centrist, right? Left, right. I guess for you guys that would be left, right. Whatever. So centrist, left, right? And the Overton window in our society has slid super, super far to the right. Like super far to the right. So that in America, our left wing are actually right wingers. So the line of the Overton window is where the centrists used to be, right? That here in Canada, for example, like Justin Trudeau is on the right, just like with the Conservatives. And so the Overton window has slid so far to the right. And Don't Look Up has at least attempted to shift the Overton window back to the left. It's at least kicking on the wall. It's at least going, go. We've got to be able to discuss this. Move this. And that's what I want to pay attention to. And that's what I attempt to do myself, is to constantly move the Overton window. Because it would be nice to live in a society where we could even talk about left ideas. Like, why is it that we simply don't talk about homelessness? We simply don't talk about these things. Why is that considered a far left position? And the reason why it's considered a far left position is because if this is the Overton window, talking about poverty and homelessness and these sorts of things are considered an extreme left position. They're not even considered a left position, a liberal position, right? That's how far the Overton window has gone. And leftists on YouTube, by and large, are not actually that interested in moving the Overton window, right? That they see the lines that are drawn and they'll operate within those lines. So, like, don't get me wrong, like, Thought Slime's over here on the left of the Overton window, right? But, like, all of this stuff is like, who's the worst political cartoonist, classic centrist stuff? Buying illegal drugs in Canada is shockingly easy. You could see that on Marketplace. CBC would do a thing on that, right? Halloween is better than Christmas. Like, that's just good fun, right? The grift economy, everything is a scam always, right? Like, is this moving the Overton window? And I just worry that guys like Thought Slime aren't interested in it, or they're not thinking about it, or it's just they're happy in their little bubble, right? They're happy in their little bubble. Anyway, that's enough about Thought Slime. Just to put a pin in it, though, I do want to say I like Thought Slime as a person. Anytime I tune into his stuff, I think I understand why he's big. I get what he's doing. I just wish that he was more interested in actually pushing things and galvanizing his people and doing something really impactful and really meaningful, right? Yeah, you're right about this. The left is very splintered. A lot of them are wandering off into dead ends. Yeah, well, and YouTube itself is a dead end, right? Like, you better cooperate with what YouTube wants or they'll throttle you. I'm proof, right? Incidentally, share my shit around, guys. If you don't share it, they don't see it. It's very straightforward. YouTube's not showing it. Like, YouTube's not sharing it around. I know that for a fact. So, like, it's you guys share it or it doesn't get seen. And, like, lots of these leftists are like, oh, I don't want that to happen to me. I care more about my business than I care about the movement. Whereas, a guy like me, I've had enough of this place. The worst thing that they can do to me is deplatform me. Well, and that'd be the worst thing for them to do, honestly, if they started actually legitimately deplatforming people. But anyway. Do you think the left was defeated or perceived defeat from the outcome of the Occupy movement? I don't think that the left, like people who are actually leftists, right? Everybody knew that that was going to happen. Like nobody was sitting there being like, and then Occupy will become like a big thing and actually take over America and it'll spread forever and the United States military will cooperate. And like, no, everyone knew that shit was going to get cleared out. Everybody knew. There are lessons to learn from the Occupy movement, right? That you can't actually, like, you need a central organization, like you do. This anarchist idea that you can just do stuff and things will happen, like, no, that genuinely doesn't work. Like, how many times do we need to actually see that happen before we go, like, no, you have to have some kind of central, like, authority. There needs to be someone or some group that you can freely interact with, preferably one that's democratic, that you can look to and say, these are the people who have authority. You need it. If you don't have it, then it's not going to work, right? Like, how different would Occupy Wall Street have looked had they had, like, a central authority that the entire group said, yeah, those are the guys. Those are the people who are in charge. It would have been a different story altogether. And the Occupy movement was successful in many ways, right? If you look at it as a cultural movement, the whole 1% versus 99% narrative was because of the Occupy movement, right? It's not a small thing to get these things into the discourse, right? It's not a small thing. Like, people like, I bring it back to Don't Look Up again. Oh, by the way, Barnabas, I forgot to say hello. Hi, how you doing, bud? What'd you miss? That's big. Go watch Don't Look Up. That's the theme of today's stream for sure. The, like, Don't Look Up is the thing. Have a good night, Onward. But Don't Look Up is, like, the life's, like, this is the life's work of these artists, right? And it takes enormous effort to shift the Overton window. It takes enormous effort to get things into the national discourse, especially when you have like a corporate media and a corporate media apparatus that's working overtime to omit and obfuscate, which is why the Overton window has shifted so far to the right. And the success of the Occupy movement was the shifting of the Overton window and the inclusion of even the idea that we are the 99%, that wealth has accrued underneath the 1%. Like, that whole narrative is understood because of the Occupy movement. And then, yeah, I think you're right. Bernie doesn't happen without Occupy. Because ultimately, because the Occupy movement was so disorganized, anarchist, if you like, its people sort of blew off into their own places. Some of the people who were central organizers are dead, because that's life, right? That's just how it goes. People like David Graeber, for example, the great and powerful David Graeber. And so, but that energy needs to go somewhere. And so a lot of that energy went into, finally, the Democratic Party, where leftist ideas go to die. And because of that, we now see, writ large, like, it's impossible to deny that the American system is completely fraudulent. Like, the Democrats steal the election from Bernie Sanders, give it over to Clinton, right? And that gives Donald Trump the platform upon which he can stand and credibly say that the Democrats stole the election from him. Even though that seems to be not the truth, but it doesn't matter because it seems credible. And why does it seem credible? Because they stole the election from Bernie, which we know they did. Like, we know they did that. That's undeniable. And so the So the Occupy movement stands as a successful movement for what it was, right? And the reason ultimately why they had to clear the encampments, in my view, is that the occupiers were beginning to put together, like the narrative from the occupiers was that corporations are the problem. You had documentaries like The Corporation, right? Which argued explicitly that corporations are psychopaths. You had these sorts of narratives that existed in the Occupy movement. The Tea Party was on the other side of this conversation, right? It's interesting how the left and right often reflect one another, right? Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, right? The left and the right often reflect one another. So you have the Occupy movement, you have the Tea Partiers. And the Tea Partiers were saying the problem is government, right? A real Reaganist sort of position, right? The problem is government. Well, what started happening is that the occupiers started saying, well, wait a minute. These guys are saying that the problem is government. Who owns the government? It's the corporations. And so they started to realize, oh, if we amalgamate this idea, right, that the problem is not government exclusively, it's that a corporate oligarchy has purchased the government, then these two forces can merge and start smashing the place apart a little bit better. And once that started to happen, that's when the encampments got cleared. Because they could not allow that to happen. And what was terrifying, especially for the Democrats, remember it was Obama that did this, was that the occupiers at this point were refusing, outright explicitly denying and refusing any cooperation from Democrats. That if you were a Democrat and you came into an Occupy encampment and attempted to speak, you were booed. They refused to touch the Democrats. They were considered pariahs. People who attempted to connect the Occupy movement to the Democratic Party were ejected from the Occupy movement. It was very, very serious. They even refused to allow like civil rights leaders who had spoken at Democratic events to speak to them. They outright rejected it. That if you are collaborating with the Democrats in any way, you are an enemy of the Occupy Wall Street movement. And so what does that mean? It means that once the occupiers begin talking to the Tea Partiers and they begin finding commonality, it means that the political energy is going to come up on the Republican side. And if you're Obama, Democratic president, you don't want that. Clear the encampments. So they did. Like, the Occupy Wall Street movement is a seminal moment. And when it happens again, and it will, it can't not, when it happens again, it's going to be more violent. It's going to be more militant. The movement itself and the actions that are taken against it will be much more aggressive, much more terrifying. And you will see public acts in order to try to convince occupiers to end what's going on. Like, serious public acts, which occurred in the Occupy movement itself, like kettling people, spraying people, gassing people, right? All of that happened during the Occupy movement, right? You're going to see very, very serious shit when this movement kicks off again, and it will. Rest in peace, David Graeber. Absolutely. We are the 99%. Well, and even more, it's getting to be like we are the 99.99%. Like, as much as people try to paint people like me as being like, oh, you want everybody to be poor, it's like, no, dude, like, I just want everyone to have food. Like, I think it's reasonable to say everyone should have food and shelter. Like, I think that's reasonable. I genuinely think that's a non-political position. Like, It's extremely weird to me that saying out loud everyone should have food and shelter is considered a political position. It's odd. Like, don't you think it's odd? Why is this a political position? Everyone should have food and shelter. Like, that's not, I don't understand how that's left, right, or anything. Like, how is that anything other than, like, obvious? Like, yeah, everyone should have food and shelter. Dorp, dorp. Like, duh. Like, seems basic. See, it seems like it doesn't seem, it seems to like, that kind of statement seems ahead or like, before you get into politics, you need food and shelter. Like, it seems like it's before politics. That it's like apolitical. It's just not a political position. Right? And, like, you can have a debate as to how to do that. Right? You can have a debate as to how to do that. And that's where the politics should come in. But it seems like we are not having a conversation at all about how does everyone get food and shelter. And we are instead having a conversation about whether or not people should have food and shelter. And this, to me, is insane. How do you expect to build a society? How do you expect to live in a stable society if everyone doesn't have food and shelter? Like, it's insane. And yet this is where we are. Right? With one side saying look up and the other side saying don't look up. That's really where we're at. All right, guys. I'm overtime. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Please like, please share, please subscribe. If you don't share it, no one sees it. The propaganda is too strong. Yeah, we're trying. We're trying to push that Overton window, and that's the reason why they're trying to make it. They're trying to shove us out of the conversation. That's the truth. They want to keep us on. They want to keep us outside, looking through into the window. Always remember, guys. You are a quantum being, standing around in quantum energy. These billionaires do not want you to think that way, because it means that you think you're just as valid as they are, that you're not below them looking up, but in fact looking straight across and seeing them for what they are. And they can't have that. Rebel, revolt, repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.